Welcome to lesson 11 of our Knitting 101. We have one more week to go. Today we are going to be binding off our stitches and then sewing it together to form the cowl. So let's get started. Here is the beginning of our work here. Let's just have a little overview, and then we have all of our different weeks that we've learned different patterns. And last week we completed our cable stitches. So today we are going to start our cast off. So let's get started. All right, so your work is facing you. So you want the right side facing you. Your cables should be facing you. You're going to knit 2 stitches. Now you do want to knit this loosely. Do not knit tight because otherwise it's going to pull your work in. So you want to make sure you do this fairly loose. I'm going to knit 2 stitches. So you have 2 on your right hand side. You're going to grab this stitch, your very first stitch, and you're going to pass it over top of the second stitch. So now you're down to 1 stitch on this needle. You're going to knit another stitch, and you're going to grab the stitch to the farthest to the right and pass it over the stitch on the left. So you always, after the passover, should only have 1 stitch left on the right needle. So let's do a few more. Again, make sure you do this loosely. When you come to your stitch marker, you're just going to remove it at this point and keep going. So you're going to do this all the way across. You can see what your bind off looks like now. And this is why you want to keep it loose. You don't want to have it all tight and scrunched up. So pause your video and finish to the end till you only have 1 stitch left and it'll be on your right side. All right, we have gone all the way across. We have just one stitch left on the needle. Here is the rest of our bind off right here. What we are going to do, we've got our long tail of yarn. You want to figure about 1.5 feet and then cut it at about 1.5 feet. Now, pull this loop large, remove your needles, and what I do is I usually give this a couple of twists. So you can see right here, I've just twisted a few times, and then I pull the long string through it and pull it snug. Now the reason you want to leave this long section here is because we're going to use this as our tail piece to stitch this to the other side to make our cowl. All right, with the right side facing you, and this is the right side here, you're going to fold it completely in half so that now the wrong side is up. So the right side is in the middle here. Then we are going to use our long tail here, and we are going to be seaming across here in order to make this into our cowl. Now in the very beginning of my work, I had a long tail that I used with my cast on, and this was just excess thread or excess yarn. So I don't need this anymore, so I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. So let's get started. This is the yarn that I had that was left from the cast on, and I had just wound it. This is just a bread twist to keep your bread package closed. So that's all that is, but it works great. So this is just a little leftover piece, and I'm just going to leave about 4 inches to weave in, and I'm just going to cut the excess off. I'm going to mainly be focusing with this large section. So now, as I mentioned last week, you can use either a crochet hook or a needle with a large eye to bind this shut. So I'm going to show both methods. We'll start with the crochet hook first. And here's our long tail. All you're going to do is insert your crochet hook through one stitch. First one might be a little snug, and then through the second stitch in the back. So you can see I've got the 2 pieces here. You're going to take this long tail, catch it with your hook, and draw it through both. Pull it all the way through, move it to the back again, go to the next stitch. Remember, it's 50 stitches across, so you're going to do this 50 times. You're going to grab this, pull it through both the front and the back, pull it all the way, move it to the back, go through the next front and back stitch, and grab it and pull it through. And you're basically going to be looping this all the way across the 50 stitches. Now let me show you if you were using the long needle. You're going to be doing the same process, but you're going to be just threading it through. So here it is with my needle, and I'm going to be doing the same technique, but instead of using a crochet hook to pull it through, I'm just going to be catching the first stitch, the stitch behind, and pulling it from the front to the back. Instead of pulling the yarn from the back, each time I would move it forward. I'm going to go through the first stitch, the second stitch, pull it through, bring it to the front again, go through the next 2 stitches, pull it through, bring it to the front, pull it through, and again, you're going to do this all the way across. If I were to hold this out, it looks as if my cast on edge is wider than my finished edge. You can see right here. It isn't, it's just because this is a different stitch than your garter stitch. So as you go across, you're going to have to pull the side that has your cables on it. You're going to have to kind of stretch it a little bit, stitch for stitch, going across. It will be 50 stitches, so it will eventually come out right at the end, but you're just going to have to be careful as you go across. If it helps, you can use clothespins or safety pins and kind of pin it together, or even straight pins and pin it in place. But if you go stitch for stitch on both sides, you should come out, because it's, like I said, 50 stitches all the way across, you should come out fine at the end. And at the end, you are going to just twist and tie that edge off and weave in the ends. And that is our lesson for lesson 11. Make sure you come back next week, because we are going to block this so that our edges that draw in like this, where we did our rib stitch, that's going to be pulled out. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and please watch next Wednesday when we do our final lesson, and I will also see you on Saturday for our regular Saturday morning podcast. Thanks again for watching.